Today we are going to walk through a behind the scenes of a photo shoot that I did with my friend Delaney in Malibu Creek State Park. We both wanted to get creative and do something in nature, but then have a high fashion look to it. Let's get into it. So we found this rolling hills in the park that had this beautiful sunlight coming over the hills and just hugging it. And we shot this around 5 p.m. I wanted to have a couple hours of sunlight left to have the softest of natural light since we were utilizing natural light for this shoot. Delaney is an incredibly talented dancer, and we wanted to showcase that with capturing motion within our images. And to do that, we used an ND filter because when it is daytime out, it is incredibly difficult to capture slower shutter images without an ND filter because the exposure would just be too bright and your image would be blown out. It would just be completely white. So an ND filter allows and acts as a sunshade or sunglasses for your lens to allow you to open up either the aperture or slow down the shutter and still have an exposed image. And so that's what we did here. What you're seeing now is how we're working through different movements and different poses, get into like a little flow a bit, because I think that if you're just like static with a model like that, you get a lot less natural looking images, and with continuous movement and changing facial expressions produces a much more organic and authentic image, in my opinion. I really enjoy a backlit image, and especially when you have a higher aperture or f-stop, because with a higher f-stop, more of the image is in focus, and since you're at a slower shutter and motion is already being blurred, it's better to have a more in focus image for the portions of the image that will be in focus. And the cool thing about slower shutter is even when it's like 1/30 or 1/40, it's not always gonna cause a bunch of motion blur, which is great. It gives you still that illusion here. As you can see with her hair, there's still some motion in that while she's being still captured as the subject. The emphasis on body movement and flow. One thing that I always enjoy doing is making a GIF video out of images. My camera can do about 10 frames a second, so here it's like a Super 8 type effect. Instead of having you freestyle on video, let's just do like a short little freestyle while I was taking 10 photos per second. And here we had her just run through like a little flow, and with the motion blur, it just looks really nice. Here we moved on to a new portion of the park just to get a slightly different viewpoint. Had a little bit more space to move around here because we weren't on the hill. And so we wanted to capture some like running motion shots. That's what she's doing here, running back and forth. And it may look silly here on the behind the scenes, but really the exaggerated movement is so important because when you're taking the image, you're capturing one still image instead of like the whole thing. So what matters is the one image that you do end up capturing. The exaggerated movements make it look so much better as a final product. Shout out to Delaney for running back and forth a handful of times. And from there, we just did some more poses because she had more room to work with, continued to free flow. And as you can see, as the day went on, the sun got a little lower, and then instead of having like the direct backlight, it had like a glow to it. It was just illuminating that whole thing and making it such a beautiful, warm picture. She just really, really crushed it here. Then I wanted to capture some images that look more like a painting with a bunch of blur. And to do that, you open up around, my favorite is 1/6, but anywhere from 1/4 to 1/8 is a good ballpark, and you can play around with it to your preference. And with this, very little movement is needed. I essentially just had her run her hand through her hair and like move around a little bit, right? And so that's literally all she was doing right here. But in the image, it looks like there's such an exaggerated movement, but that's because of the 1/6 shutter speed. And I just think it's a gorgeous shot. So here I had her flick her hair and I waited for her head to slow. And then you take the picture, her hair was illuminating, and just really loved this. I recently purchased a 10mm Laowa lens with no distortion that I wanted to test out for this shoot. And we were walking back on the trail and I saw this tree and I was like, this would be perfect because 10mm is such a wide field of view that it would make it look so epic, and she would look so epic within that scene. And as you can see here, it's like she's in her own little world. It felt very ethereal. A big part of it is the styling of the suit in nature just really went off and really popped. When you're in places like this with a lot of green, anything that's a darker color that's not a complement to it really stands out, that is like a factor in making an image that looks different than other images. To end it off, I saw a moment for a composite shot. I saw this trail that was going diagonally with these trees in the back. I had her do a different pose as the trail progressed up, and this was the only image that we decided to do directly in the sun, but I think it's also such a distinct look that it really turned out really beautiful with the composition of having the trees and the clouds, and having that blue to green contrast with the suit was very beautiful. This one was really enjoyable to do because it pushed both of us creatively and really just went out and created some images that we were both very stoked on. Let me know if you have any questions below, or if you want any more insight on anything that was touched on in this video. And you could have been doing anything and you chose to spend a few minutes with me. I appreciate you.